Hello, and welcome to the second Can of Worms episode for the Save It for the podcast. I'm your host, Aaron, and I'm joined by
Neiman.
Neiman
Let's get ready to rumble. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, if you have not watched our first Can of Worms episode, just a brief recap. The three golden rules of the Save It for the podcast are revoked. There will be cussing. There will be talk of politics if it comes to it. Don't make me talk politics. And there might be some light ASMR. So just a warning. Yeah, let's get to it. Last episode, which was episode 4, we talked about theater in general and how therapeutic it is and how important it is to society in general. And we have not talked about the dark side of theater, which we
Mm-hmm.
shall do today. And yeah, Neiman, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Where do I start with the dark side of theater? Um, I think just coming from personal experience, I think uh when I was first on Comedy Sports, the improv team over in my high school, I didn't really see the dark side as much. I kind of saw little hints and glimpses of it, as occasionally the some of the comedy sports players would have to ditch practice to go to, like, rehearsal or something like that, and so they couldn't be there all the time. And uh, that was probably my first exposure to that, and I thought it was a little bit weird. Just coming from, a 14-year-old freshman, I was just like, and in comedy sports was something I really liked doing. And, I was just really confused and like, oh, maybe they just don't like to do it. Um, then come sophomore year, when I started doing like actual theater in high school. Now, I think some of my first exposures to, I guess, the darker side of things, sophomore year was a little bit better, I think, in my personal experience,
Right.
just because at that time, most everyone was really happy
Mhm.
and chill with each other. Um, if you ask anyone in the theater department who lived through those times, they'll tell you that, those 2 years of 2016 to, hold on, am I doing my math right? See, graduated in 2018. So that means 2017,
Theater kids, we suck
2015
at
to
math.
2018. Yeah, exactly. Any time between 2015 to 2018 was probably I guess the less good years.
Right.
Um, I think, again, my sophomore year was really great because people actually liked each other. We liked the show. We liked working with each other. Um, you know, and it was definitely like the closing nights for the show Addams Family, right? It's probably that moment will forever be ingrained in my mind, just because it was the first time doing a Share the Love, um, which essentially was this really like sappy, everyone sits around in a circle kind of thing. I cried at almost every single one, so I'm not
Oh.
really one to call it sappy. um, but I cried at every single one. But the first time it happened, I was just so, I guess, struck by all the seniors' comments and all of the things they said about theater. Um, but as soon as like the curtain went down after we did our final number that night,
Mhm.
like literally everyone was in tears, and it was like such a weird, almost like cathartic experience for me, just because I had all these like feelings that I didn't really know, and I hadn't performed in theater for so long, kind of thing. um and it felt great. And that was probably one of the last times for a while that I felt like theater was like this good thing, right? It's
Hmm.
come junior year, right?
Hmm.
Um, as soon as junior year hit, um, we definitely had a lot of questionable drama. Um, Without going into too much detail, because who knows might be listening.
Hmm.
Um, there were lots of egos going around. Um,
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. That's
yeah.
yeah.
See, my junior year, there were definitely a handful of individuals who, felt that they were entitled to, put on an attitude just because, they were either going into the arts and so they, were professionals, in quotes, at their work. Um, and it was just an overall very toxic environment. People always shouted at each other, like literally like yelling at each other for no apparent reason, like not even to project. It was like literally just for the purpose of yelling. Um, there's lots of yelling, there's lots of toxicity, lots of, oh, she did this and now I don't like her. And, it's just very bad overall, just because nobody really liked each other and everyone was really just like bad to each other. And again, that's coming from, just the mere amount of time you spend with one another. I think although you can, foster a lot of friendships that way, it does also tend to increase the amount of enemies, or at least
Right.
increase the likelihood of creating enemies, just because you spend so much time. And I remember that was also the show that um, I'd never seen happen again, but there was this one time during the show or during the rehearsal, where um, this one scene we were trying to think of like stage pictures or something like that,
Right.
and the director was telling us one thing, but the senior boys at that moment decided to think otherwise, and they made a suggestion to the director of like a different choice, and she, she basically flipped and was very scary at the time. I was
Yeah.
I was a teenager, a kid basically at the time, so I thought it was super scary. Looking back, it was probably, just an angry adult, but she suddenly became like very sassy, I think, just because she felt, and I'm not necessarily sure who's in the wrong here, because it was one of the most stressful weeks of
Right.
rehearsal,
Yeah.
and everyone was just feeling a lot of tension and stress, and the director was feeling a lot of stress. We as actors were feeling a lot of stress. So really, it's just at the fault of everyone here. Um, but yeah, she snapped basically, and was just deciding not to work. And I think also called rehearsal early that night, even though like we had been going home at
Hmm.
like 8 9 p.m. I think she sent us home at like 5. So it was a
Ooh.
whole like 3 hours just because like she was so mad, which was kind of crazy. That show was also the show where this was a musical.
Right.
This show was also the show where there was an incident which I had just remembered right now, where there was a incident of, I'm trying to remember, something about shoes, I think. Um,
I think I
something,
know the incident you're talking about, but go on.
yeah, it was during a like dinner or something, and I think someone was like, I don't remember all the details, but I think someone was like throwing around a shoe or something like that, and then people got offended, and then everyone started hating each
Oh.
other, and there was a whole divide between Well, first off, there was a divide between the boys and the girls just
Mm.
because it, for some reason, became a gendered argument, which was not true. Um, they kind of just portrayed it that way just because um, at one point, I think, someone accused, she went into this person went into the boys' bathroom and was like, first off, she, had a whole rant on the guys who did the act. I can't remember. I don't know if it was like an offhand like remark about like woman or something like that, or it was something. But what matters is it caused a lot of drama.
Right.
And this person came in and she was like ranting about us, and then she ranted towards the bystanders because she was like, you guys didn't do anything, and so by association I hate you guys too. And that was just, it felt really sad, just because I personally wasn't even there at the thing, but I was still being associated with that, which I thought was unfair. But, it is what it is. At the end of the day, it caused a lot of divide between the boys and the girls, and also between the actors and the technicians. So there was just divide everywhere, and that led to more yelling, or led, sorry, for English, that
Oh
led
my god.
to more drama and more yelling. And soon the director had to step in, and it was a whole thing, and that had never happened before. Um,
I'm about to say a naughty word. So you're telling me this was a clusterfuck? Whoa, naughty
Indeed,
word.
it was. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy. I didn't know that was a naughty word.
Jesus.
Um,
But yeah, please continue.
Thank you. Um, so, yeah. So those 2 years were just bad. And that's not even mentioning the senior show for
Oh
that,
boy.
which was interesting that year as well. See, that year was also interesting because same thing happened,
Yep.
except with the compounded effect of the seniors being second semester seniors and not really wanting to put in the work,
Yeah.
um, or at least as much as they want to. And also, they, all had differing creative ideas and whatnot. Um, and it was just weird because the director also wanted like the undergraduate. Why am I saying undergraduates? This is not college. Um, they also wanted the underclassmen to participate, but it wasn't a show where underclassmen really could participate. So we
Mhm.
were kind of just in this random, show, um, for like no apparent reason other than just to be there, when we could have been doing
Yeah.
other stuff like homework.
Yeah.
But we were there, even
Oh well.
though the seniors didn't want us in it, we didn't want to be in it, so it was just a whole mess. And the director, even the following year, um, like my senior year,
Yeah.
like we would always talk about how things were going to be different that year, or when
Right.
last year, I mean. And they were, luckily we luckily were able to fix the divide, which I think is better now more than ever, according to my brother.
Hmm. That's good
um
to hear, actually, honestly,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I haven't been in contact with anyone. I don't think, but yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah, no, it's really great. But yeah, as far as I know, things are looking okay. Last year was a really good year, just
Mhm.
because you know the seniors cared,
Right.
um, and we knew that. And the thing is too, the thing that sucks about all of this, I won't go into too much detail, but there was this whole thing of um, talent, right?
Mm.
Um, and after I let you speak, um, the whole thing I want to go into about talent. I think is also a really dark side of theater.
Yeah.
But before I get into it, there's this whole thing too with, the seniors of 2018, the year before us. The thing is, they actually had the talent to back up their ego, which is like the thing that
Right.
sucks about all of it. Because, you just wish that they were actually talentless. But the thing is, they actually had,
No.
the
Yeah.
talent to have such, inflated heads. So that was the thing about it. And of course, not all of the seniors were like that. And obviously, there were some good ones out there and ones who didn't, put themselves over others.
Right.
Um, and so we, as the seniors, my senior year, were able to acknowledge that and, um,
Don't you
put
mean
more.
our senior year?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we focused on really honing in on I keep wanting to say undergraduates. God, the underclassmen again, just because I think that one of the problems with the year before was that it was so focused on the seniors for whatever
Mhm.
reason, just because a lot of them were going to art colleges or going somewhere in the arts. Um, and come the following year, there were probably only like, now that I think about it, probably only like one of us that went into the arts, I'm pretty sure.
Hmm.
So it was a very stark as compared to, I think, like 4 or 5-ish from the year before. That's a rough number,
Right.
but still a huge number.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
uh, that's kind of I didn't really go into too much detail with a lot of things, just because there is
Yeah,
more drama, but
that's actually kind of smart because, we don't know who might be listening in.
it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we might be a part of a podcast, but we're still people and we can still get 1,000 million angry text messages overnight, like,
that's
what have
right.
you said about me? And that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, so let me just list all of the people I hated during theater.
yes.
It's not many,
Um, yeah.
but
Yeah, I was kind of lucky in that regard because I didn't really uh, I want to say get to experience, but like it's not an experience you like want to get. So uh, it's not exactly something I experienced until I graduated from high school and started, going into community theater and community college theater and whatnot.
yeah,
And what was actually kind of impressive about uh, the college theater I went into was that there was an entire group dedicated to just like moving on their own, like independently from faculty theater. So like that was actually pretty cool because it lets students like gain experience and on their own, like tech, like do tech on their own, direct on their own, act on their own, that kind of
yeah,
stuff. And it was a good experience, of course, but like all theater, there was also a dark side to it. There were people there who were hard to work with, to put it mildly. And well, yeah, and problems did rise from there, and drama did happen in theater because you know for all its shining showmanship, theater is still an industry where you have to work with people, and people mean drama. So
and not the good drama,
yeah, and not the good
not
drama.
the
So I mean, when you put a group of people together and essentially force them to work together, it they're either gonna like be a family by the end of the show, or they're gonna hate each other by the end of the show. So it's a coin toss essentially. But yeah, still though, for if anyone listening to this wants to get into theater, it's essentially about learning how to compromise, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like, because at the end of the day, your personal vendettas isn't what matters. What matters, of course, you need to be in a correct headspace and, you keep up a healthy mindset. But like you're there to do a show, and it would be just better for everyone if everyone just cooperated, despite each other's characters and how you hate everyone you're working with. You know?
Yeah.
So it's all about compromise until eventually presenting the audience with a proper show.
Mm-hmm. The
So
finished product.
yeah, proper finished product. And yeah, this is true for the film industry as well. There we hear about all these dramas that happen between all
Mm-hmm.
these like famous actors, and like between actors and directors, between actors and writers. That all this drama is just like it happens everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
As long as there's a workplace where multiple people collide with each other, there will be drama.
Yeah.
And this is especially true for drama. It's in the name.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with all of your points.
Yeah. And
I think,
I'm yeah.
yeah, no,
No.
I mean, just with, I feel like in addition, that could also, I mean, well, here's the thing, right? In any, business or any workplace you go into, you always have to work with people, right? Like you said, it's an industry, so you have to work with people.
Right.
I think, again, what makes theater unique from other industries is the fact that you are working so closely and intimately to create a very tangible finished product.
Right.
Because at least if you're in an office, for example, there's lots of ways you can avoid a certain person
Yeah.
if you have to. But in theater, that's just
Especially if there are
very
cubicles involved, you can just
exactly
like
right.
you can just
You
like
know,
yeah.
yeah, and there's probably like other people in the department or something like
Yeah,
that. So
exactly.
there's
So
lots of ways to do that. But in theater, each role, both technician and actor, is very niche. It's very much
yeah.
that it's that specific person who does that specific
We
job.
are
So you need
literally
to have a
sharing a room.
yeah,
Like yeah.
exactly. So there's lots of and again, you just have to compromise. There's just no way of getting around it, especially in theater.
Yeah.
um I think another thing too, just in the same vein of dark side of theater, um kind of away from like the workplace aspect of it and more of like the actual like art
Yeah.
form of theater. I think another dark side of theater, aside from the business stuff,
Hmm.
because I think
Yeah, the
at the end of
business
the
is a whole other issue.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, everything's a business.
Yeah.
At least here in America, which can be a good and bad thing. Um, you know, I won't get into it too much, but there's that. The thing I was going to mention was what specifically for me, I didn't like about theater and what basically drew me away from theater
Hmm.
entirely towards the end, um, was the idea of physical appearance. Here's what I mean
Mm.
by that. Um, a lot of times when you see the meta, scene or episode of like an audition within a show kind of thing, or like when they
Right.
show like someone auditioning for something or something,
Yeah.
a lot of times you'll see people saying, oh my gosh, you did so well, you look the part. And that was something I didn't realize for a really long time. Just because I feel like my high school teacher who put me in the plays,
Mhm.
um, I personally felt like she did it out of pity. Um, just because, I was this cute little bald boy who was in comedy sports, and, he could act. He wasn't as great as the others, but, he
Shut
was
up!
still
You were
trying.
awesome.
Um, Thank you. Thank you very much. Um, I try my best.
Oh.
Um, but, I don't know why it took me so long to realize, it's very difficult to, you know, and that's the thing too. Theater is like a really weird, because like, here's the thing. Here's my personal take on it.
Right.
Some shows require that the actor be a certain race because that's just how the play is written. A great example
Right.
of this, a great musical example of this is West Side Story.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, switch the races of, having Puerto Ricans play white people and white people play Puerto Ricans, because
Yeah.
that's not what the show is about. Um, on the other hand, there's lots of shows where you can do the opposite of that. For example, Addams Family, where
Mm-hmm.
the race doesn't really matter at all because you're either dead or alive. So it's not like, there's one, race that you need.
Yeah.
And so that's an example of
You can only be dead if you're white.
That's right. That's right. So, death to all. No, I'm kidding.
Oh
I'm kidding.
no. Oh no.
I'm kidding if
Oh
you're a white person.
boy.
Okay, I love white people. Okay, they're great. Okay.
So before we dig this hole even deeper, please continue.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I just wasn't really attracted to, and for obvious reason, right? I mean, I'm bald. I don't have any hair anywhere. I got no eyebrows or anything like that. So if I do decide to act for whatever reason down the road, it would be very niche roles, like like the kid with
Right.
cancer, or
Oh
the
no.
the nerdy kid with alopecia, which I do have. But
Gosh.
it would be roles like that. It wouldn't be like the handsome uh, hero guy who saves everyone. But I could be the quirky sidekick, which I'm fine with. But that's the thing I don't like about theater is it's very like niche. It's very even if you do display the most amount of talent in a
Right.
room, looks is still going to be a huge factor. And I just personally wasn't attracted to that. Again, for obvious reason. Do you have any
Yeah, I
comment on
mean,
that?
not really. I mean, you're right. Yeah. I guess it has something to do with the Hollywood mindset of America,
Mm-hmm.
because this is especially true in America. So yeah, with Hollywood selling sex instead of movies, and like that mindset eventually spilling over to other art forms such as theater, such as painting and whatnot,
Right.
like advertisements thereof. It's just like, yeah, it's just true. There's nothing to be said about it. Nothing to add. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
uh, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think too.
that being said, we're slowly approaching the 30-minute mark.
Whoa.
Whoa! And would this be a good place to, stop with this topic and start answering questions? You think?
Sure. Yeah, let's
Alrighty.
do it.
Yeah.
So
So previous episodes we asked you. I can speak, I swear. English is my first language. Give me
I
a second.
believe you.
We asked you guys to give us questions so that we can talk about them on the podcast. Unfortunately, aside from one question, which we did talk about in episode 4,
Took the
they
entire 50 minutes and more.
exactly,
And I
yeah.
didn't even fully answer.
Yeah, we had to continue in this episode, and yeah. most of the questions, or I think all of them, were can of wormsy. And so we decided to talk about them here in the Can of Worms episode. So yeah, Neiman, you're in possession of the questions.
I'm in possession of these questions. So these questions came from a friend of mine. Let's just start with. Okay, so let's start with this one. Pros and cons of free college. If my school is going online next fall, should I not pay rent at the expense of my friendship with my roommates? Rent is about $700 a month, and it is about 6 months. Thoughts, opinions,
Oh boy.
comments,
Gosh.
queries, qualms?
I mean, thing about free college is, well, college is a human right. Well, not college in general, but education is a human right. So
Yes.
it's, it's good that it is accessible. But gosh, the rent. Ugh. Ugh, that's a.
Yeah. The rent's a lot.
Yeah. Well,
Here's what
especially for a college student. Jeez.
here's what I
Yeah.
will say. A lot of my friends at UCI are dorming in the apartments, right?
Right.
Rather than the dorm itself.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of them are working a job. So I would recommend, if you do decide to, wait, hold on. If my school is going online next fall, should I not pay rent at the? Oh, right. Okay, I understand. I have to reread the question because I wasn't sure. Yeah. So again, if you do value your friendship that much, if it's worth the $700 price tag, then I say go for it. If you're going to pay, well, I would also consider the price of tuition.
Yeah.
Just because, if you're paying full price, I would probably,
Yeah.
if you're going to pay full price for an online education, that's not really, I would not personally not pay for rent. I would just communicate with your friends via, Zoom as much as it sucks, or, texting each other memes or something like
Yeah.
that.
Or Discord or Instagram or,
Discord,
their
really anything,
internet
right?
exists. Yeah.
Yeah, play Minecraft together or something
Yeah,
like that.
there
That's
you
a
go.
fun way to bond.
Yeah. Creating a server is actually easier than I thought. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So, yeah, I would say if it is going online, if you're paying full price, I would say no. If you do think it's worth the investment, I think get a job for sure.
Yeah.
I know a lot of like places like Whole Foods or like grocery stores, I think are looking for a lot of workers right now, just because, um, Miss Rona has, taken over our life.
Yeah.
So you can get jobs there, I think, if it's worth. Another thing to consider is if you are planning on moving, get a job now and save up, just because it'll save you so much time and money down the road. And that's not to pressure you to like decide right away whether or not
Yeah,
you want to,
please do not risk your life if you don't think it's worth it, because you are worth it.
Yes, you are. So, final answer, depending on how much you value your friendship, I think, consider full tuition, of course, and get a job.
Gosh.
So get a
I feel I
job,
feel
you
I feel
lazy.
dirt I feel dirty. I feel dirty.
It's
I
okay. It's
don't.
okay. I know
Ooh.
jobs are scary. They're
Yeah.
very, very scary.
No, it's not like that. It's just like, you know, because
Oh,
there are other podcasts that are like, get a job, that kind of stuff. So it's like,
yeah,
but we're not pressuring you into getting a job because, like we're not telling you that you're, a lazy millennial or something like that, because
yeah,
we are lazy Gen Zs. So
we are.
yeah.
The reason I say get a job is just because personally for me, that's how I have found. Um,
Right.
it's just my life has become so much, it's so nice having access to money that you earned. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
very rewarding to, the first time I paid for gas with my money was so rewarding as an experience because I was like, wow, I worked 8 hours for this. This feels great. So for me personally, and I'm also a workaholic, so I really like, working and whatnot.
Mm.
So that's just me. Obviously, not everyone is suited to work, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it as a recommendation. There's lots of ways I think online you can, make money. You can like start a YouTube channel or something if you want to go down that route.
Ooh,
Um,
that's kind of hard, not gonna lie.
yeah, can't guarantee
Yeah.
success as much success, but
Yeah,
it
there
is
you
what
go.
it is. So there's that. Excuse me. So next question.
Yes.
Oh, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, not really.
Okay.
I was just like, you said excuse me, and I was about to make a joke, but then I was like, no,
You
no,
ruined it.
Rona, no. Yeah. Yeah, sip on that thermo flask.
I will, thank you.
Yep. I am
Um,
out of tea, so I'm slowly turning more and more spiteful. I started out this this episode with tea, and now I'm without tea, so we shall see
it
what.
really do be like that.
Yeah.
Really do. Um, Next question.
Yes.
Um, if I'm Asian, can I spit in someone's face if they're being racist to me using coronavirus as leverage?
Do it.
Do it, yeah. I mean,
Do it.
that's my gut reaction.
I mean,
The
here's the thing though. It's hard to see like it's hard to make out who's being racist in this day and age just because everyone is trying to stay away from everyone, so it's like it unless someone actually calls you out as being Asian and starts being a dick about it, spit in his face, spit in his
mhm.
face, just spit, just, or maybe cough. I don't know
Yeah,
it.
cough is the thing. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, what was that? I
Yeah,
think
honestly, do it just out of spite.
yes, you can. Um, Me personally, I probably wouldn't. Um, I feel like, you can. I mean, that's my gut reaction to say yes, spit in their face because they're dumb butts. Um, the other side of me is saying, be the better person. Um, I think there are cases. See, this question is very like circumstantial. It's very
Yeah,
much, depending on the situation, because, if someone's just making like a really, snarky remark, I mean, there's, I feel like you can just walk away from that. But if they're like flat out like blocking your way or like going out of their own way to, make you miserable, I think that warrants, you know,
yeah,
some water to the face.
yeah.
Um, but I mean, yeah,
You
it's a
done the fake
very
queen.
exactly.
Yeah,
It's very
God.
it's very circumstantial. I think in most cases, um, I would say, you know, just I would personally say I'd appreciate if you would respect me and then walk away.
Yeah,
I think it's at the end of the day, you know, it's better to walk away being the better person because here's the thing too. Bullies thrive off of reaction.
right.
If you don't give them any, and I will say, take that with a grain of salt. There's a lot of cases where lack of reaction can also backfire, in that a lack of reaction can show that you are weak.
There are no consequences for
Yeah, or
them doing
that
this type of thing. So,
exactly. So take it with a grain of salt. It works in a lot of cases, but not all cases. Um, Bullies do tend to thrive off of reaction. I mean,
yeah,
humans are very, we like to see other people's reactions. I mean, that's
yeah.
why there's so many react
That's why the
videos
trigger
on
culture
YouTube.
exists. Yeah,
Exactly. So, um, be very careful about your reactions, because they can say a lot about your person.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, at the end of the day, you can either, I
Yeah.
guess,
Worst comes to
walk.
worst, you can Uganda knuckles that bitch.
Exactly. There you go. That's one way of putting it.
Yeah. Spit on the
Great.
fake queen. All right. So,
I'll throw back to
yeah.
January 2019.
Wait, was it 2019?
It was.
Was it just last year?
It was just last year.
Oh my
I remember
gosh.
because it was the beginning of the year. And I was
That
like, huh,
it
first meme of the year, or at least one of the first.
it feels like so fucking long ago. Like, my gosh.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Crazy how time
Internet
flies.
culture is scary.
Yeah.
Not
Can
gonna
you
lie.
believe that it was only a year ago that we were able to leave our houses? That's
Whoa, what a
crazy.
concept.
I know. Um, great.
Yep.
Um, so our last question for today
Ooh.
is
Oh, I
this one's
remember
this one's
this.
hefty. Yeah. Is there one morality of right and wrong that everyone should abide by, or is everyone's
Oh.
unique? Like, if I think eating meat is wrong, can I tell someone else that they cannot eat meat either? Extended to drugs, abortions, or other personal decisions, depending on how edgy you want to get.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's do this. I am out of tea, but I am filled with spite, so
But
I
we're
can
going to be refilling our teacup with this tea.
Yes, indeed. But I want to drink my tea, not spill it. Anyway, so oh boy. Where should we begin?
Yeah.
I mean, gosh. This is a hefty question, not
It
gonna
is a hefty
lie.
question. I
I
think,
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, there are certain things that are just like amoral by default, and there are certain things that are moral by default, you know? So it's just a matter of degree, I guess, you know?
Hmm.
So, oh gosh, Jesus Christ. Oh boy. I mean, well, see,
Go
that's the
ham.
thing. It depends. Uh, well, it depends on your reasoning for, like for telling other people not to eat meat, you know? I mean, if you are actually bothered by the smell of meat and you can't be there and you have to be there, it like for example of workplace environment,
Yeah.
going back to our previous topic,
Yeah.
if you are forced to work with these people, it would be best if you, like stay civil, ask them politely, explain your reasoning, that kind of thing. But uh like I mean, I don't know. There are so many degrees to this question,
Yeah.
because I'm a meat eater, like
Right.
I like my meat.
Yeah, me too.
Like, yeah,
Right.
there you go. But for example, my mom hates the smell of meat and therefore she will not eat meat. So, and I respect that. When I make pizza, I always make sure there's an alternative in the house
Hmm.
that she can eat. So, like, gosh, well, yeah. What do you think about this?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for asking.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
no, you don't have to apologize.
Hmm.
So is there one morality of right and wrong? Well, this is a very interesting research area.
Yeah,
Definitely something I'm considering researching down the road, at some point. Um, just because morality is a very philosophical and flexible subject.
yeah,
Um, you know, morale is, I can't remember. I listened to it a different podcast, not this podcast, but from
Ooh.
listening to my podcasts. I think on Hidden Brain, which is an excellent podcast if you're into psychology and philosophy. It's
I'll
on
be sure to check
NPR.
that out. I did not know
Um,
that whole
yeah, so it's
hidden
called
brain.
Hidden Brain.
Gotcha.
This is not sponsored,
Not
but it's a
sponsored,
great
no.
podcast. But they were talking about morality, and they were talking about like social conventions, right? And there are lots of weird social conventions and morality issues that really don't make sense. Um, like for example, you know, why would a casual hangout be any different from a workplace, right?
Yeah.
Like it, like logically, would it make sense? Because it's the same exact people. So why
Right.
would they act completely different in two separate scenarios? Even though, society tries as much as they can to differentiate between the
Mhm.
two, it's just inherently combined with each other. And that's why a potential other, can of worms topic down the road might be, the workplace. I think there's lots of like weird like workplace ethics and whatnot,
Yeah.
that I got to experience firsthand. There's lots of, the just as a really brief tangent, there's lots of um, issues with, boss employee relationships, especially outside of the workplace, which is just again a really iffy gray area.
Hmm.
Because on one hand, you want to be genuine friends with your boss, but on the other hand, you know that the boss can like, and there's evidence for this, your boss can,
Right.
psychologically and, subconsciously favor you over other employees, which
Mm.
might lead to, promotions or,
Right.
higher salaries, stuff like that, which in some cases is a good thing because, you're just being rewarded for friendship. But on the other
Yeah.
hand, then you're not being rewarded for your
Yeah.
work.
For merit.
So
Yeah.
yeah, rather than your merit.
Same
But
thing
then,
with psychologists and patient relations.
right,
You know?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, doctor-patient relations. It's again a very iffy, thing
Hmm.
because you can't have too much of one side because if you're all merit based, it's going to be so bland talking to that person because you're just going to be getting straight to the point each
Yeah.
time and you wouldn't really be engaged with the person. But on the other hand, if you're complete, buddy
Too
to buddy,
friendly. Yeah.
you can't get any work done because
Hmm.
you're always going to be forgiving each other and giving each other very lenient dates and whatnot. And so you need that balance. But brief tangent back to the question of,
Right.
is there one morality? um, I think, again, very circumstantial,
Mhm.
depending on the case. I don't think you can answer this question to answer every single case. I
Yeah.
think every single case is a case by case basis.
Right.
Like if we take eating meat, for example, um, here's the thing: science says we
Hmm.
should not be eating meat because we are dooming the planet due to global warming and all that. So science says we shouldn't be eating meat. So if you use that argument, you can basically make another argument that the morality should say no, we should not eat meat. Everyone should be eating, vegetables and just leafy greens and becoming a
Hmm.
vegan, right?
Right.
That's what science says. Does everyone do that?
Not
Not in
really. No.
hell.
Yep.
Mm-mm. Not
Mm-mm.
a chance. Um, Another interesting research topic, I think, is getting to know like why people are still choosing meat even
Right.
though they know the impending doom of the earth that they're causing with
Yeah.
each piece of meat they consume. And
Right.
again, Aaron
Right.
and I are meat eaters, so
Yeah.
we're kind of like shitting on ourselves here. But science says we shouldn't be eating meat, right?
Yeah. Mostly because of the industry rather than the meat itself.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, Now, life is very complicated. There's lots of complex issues with eating meat, for example. Because let's say we just ban eating meat, right?
Hmm.
If we ban eating meat altogether, what does that do? Yes, that does help the environment, but what does that do to all of the families that are thriving on the meat industry?
Mm.
Maybe they go bankrupt. Where are they going to go else? Because, if they are so focused on the meat industry, what industry are they going to move to next? What's going to happen to all the cows? Are we going to overpopulate with cows and therefore increase the amount of methane in the air due to the amount of cows? So there's lots of, it's a very like complex thing. And then
So
going
like
back to
asterisks after asterisk after
exactly.
asterisk. Yeah.
And this can apply to every single case. So I don't think you can say that there is one morality of right and wrong, because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, everything is right and everything is wrong, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there's one morality that you can abide to in every single case.
Right.
Because if there was one single morality that everyone could agree upon, then
There
we
wouldn't be any conflict.
exactly
Yeah.
like world peace would have already been achieved by now if
Yeah.
there was morality that we could all agree on,
Yeah.
right? um Another thing too, like drugs, for example.
Mm.
um I don't know about you, Aaron. I've never taken any drugs. I am completely sober as of right
Mhm.
now. It's on my bucket list. But I can't really speak much on the issue of drugs, but
Well, I mean, in Amsterdam, I guess.
yeah, that's the thing too. It's like with drugs, it again very circumstantial, because if you are using drugs at a reasonable amount and a
Right.
reasonable pace, the evidence says that they're at least after age 25,
Hmm.
there shouldn't be really any harm, at least for marijuana, right? If we're
Right.
looking specifically at marijuana, there should be no harm in, using that recreationally if you use it at a reasonable pace.
Mhm.
Um, so there's that. Obviously, different drugs do different things.
Yeah.
Wouldn't recommend heroin. Of course, I haven't tried it, but people usually get into trouble with heroin. So,
Yeah.
it's stuff like that. And I do think, with this question, I do think a side question is, basically, I think the question is asking, should you intervene in stuff like this? Like, should
Hmm.
you make a conscious effort to take on these things, right? Um, and, you know, why don't you talk a little bit, Aaron? I feel like I've
No
talked a little
problem.
bit too much. Yeah.
So yeah, drugs of course are a big problem here in America. And well, see, that's the thing. When you outlaw everything and offer no chance of rehabilitation and just send everyone that might, even potentially be using drugs into prison with no chance of integrating themselves to society once again, then you have an underclass that grows, that only grows as time passes. And if you do nothing
Yeah,
about this and just say, "Oh, drugs are bad, don't use them," blah 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 blah, it's not gonna help. It is not
exactly.
gonna help. It doesn't matter who's saying it. It doesn't matter how they're saying it. Doesn't matter where they're saying it. It's just not gonna matter. Okay? It's like take Amsterdam for example, or the Netherlands, right? There's way less regulation on drugs and there's way more opportunities for rehabilitation. Is drugs a problem? Are drugs a problem there? Not really. No, you don't hear about the opioid crisis in the Netherlands. You hear about it here in America.
Right.
So, gosh, that's another thing. Government intervention is sometimes necessary in order to save people from
Yeah.
like from that type of thing.
Yeah,
Okay?
absolutely.
And prison is another topic, if you just send everyone to prison without any kind of, like any kind of filter, right? So
Hmm.
if you put the mass murderers alongside the one-time drug offenders, right?
Yeah.
You're just gonna like it's the same problem, it's the same issue. You're
Yeah.
just gonna get like an underclass of people who just like their actions only worsen. Okay?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
I think
gosh.
another thing to add, on our bucket list of can of worms, I think,
Yes.
with crime, especially I just took a quarter class of, criminology, right? It was an intro to criminology class, and one thing that was always a question on my mind was, blue collar crimes.
Right.
are, for those of you who don't know, who are essentially, crimes that are committed by blue collar workers. So those are
Mm-hmm.
all of like, your office jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fraud, money laundering, all,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
So
Because
like
I
fancy crimes, the type you see on Netflix.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I think is another interesting topic to talk about, just because it's very interesting, likening that crime to someone who murdered someone, right? Like they
Yeah.
could very well be in the same facility. So the philosophy behind that is very interesting, and we can get into it a different time. But
Well,
to go
let me
back to the
just
question,
write that down. Yeah.
um,
There was also abortion. That was one of the things. That was one of the
yes,
topics that were asked, right?
yes,
Gosh.
abortion. Um, Again, yeah, sensitive topic.
Yeah. Okay. Here's my take on abortion. Okay. Like, I would much rather, okay, I would much rather live in a world without abortion, where abortion was not needed, I should say.
Mm-hmm,
Okay? But the fact of the matter is, right now, America like presents no opportunity whatsoever to the underclass of people. Okay?
mm-hmm,
Like, if there are instances that abortion is necessary, okay, like for example, if, and I am sorry for bringing these topics up, if
that's all right.
in the in the matter of incest, in the matter of rape, in the matter there are
Yeah.
so many in the matter of the mother potentially losing her life, okay,
Yeah.
in these instances abortion is necessary,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and but and there are other instances where poverty is involved, the mother just cannot handle the responsibility of the child and has no other, it just has no other choice. And the fact that people are speaking out against, you know like speaking out against these people who are getting abortions just boggles my mind, because it just shows the lack of empathy that's happening here in America.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know their stories, you don't know what they're going through. Like, they're obviously shook themselves about having an abortion, but still you're yelling and screaming, putting out all these posters and camping out in abortion, right outside of abortion clinics and calling them all sorts of names, and that's just barbaric. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
if you're so keen on stopping abortion, at least the least you can do is speak out for giving these children an opportunity. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think, you know, with abortion too, I think it's again, very complex, very interwoven issue. Like, the same thing with the cows example, right? There's
Hmm.
so many different like venues you could go down with, either route, right? Like, for example, say we just ban abortion entirely. What happens?
Hmm.
Well, probably we'd get an influx of like a homeless child population,
Yeah.
because lots of mothers are going to be abandoning their children on the streets, because where else are they going to put them? Or they're going to take matters into their own hands and either threaten their own bodies trying to get the baby, either
Yeah.
baby aborted or otherwise. So you're going to have a lot of incidences where women are starting to essentially kill themselves in an attempt to abort their own baby and whatnot.
Yeah.
And if we take the other side, if we just, uh, uh, and again, it's a very touchy subject. I'm just saying as a hypothetical, right?
Yeah.
If we allowed, abortion everywhere. Now, I'm for abortion,
Mm.
right? I think it's a valuable right that women should have,
Yeah.
right? Um, Now, if we allow abortion everywhere, I'm saying this as a hypothetical, right? This doesn't necessarily reflect my views, but if we allow abortion everywhere, then there is potential for women to abuse this, right? There is the
Mm.
potential on the dark side of things, if you look at it from this way, right, there is a potential for women or men, because men, if people are just having sex whenever they want and are basically just like killing babies like some, baby killing machine, which is a very, I know, grim way to put it, but there is a potential for that. Because if we come to a point where, uh, I'm just saying again, this is a potential and a hypothetical. This doesn't necessarily reflect my view,
Right.
but there is a point to consider that, if we are taught that, abortion just is the way to go in every single case, then what's the point of condoms, right? Or what's the
Yeah.
point of, any of that, which I again is, for STIs and all that, but also for pregnancy, right? Um, and again, if you want to look at it economically, you can look at this almost under any lens. If you want to look at it economically, what does this do to the condom industry? What does this do to the, to that industry? If, suddenly we don't need this, type of protection anymore, what does it do to those families, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's a very complex issue, and I'm not saying that, this can be answered in one way or another. And, you know, again, yeah, specifically with the case of abortions, right? I do think it's a very valuable right and something that women should have. But on the other hand, it isn't something that you should. And again, in like the cases that you mentioned, right? Like in the cases of rape, incest, all those,
Yeah.
I think abortion, is a really valuable option, right? But again, it's not, the option to go in all cases,
Yeah.
right? And, my hope is just that, people don't abuse that, right?
Yeah.
Because I know, there are lots of cases of, teen pregnancies, right? And
Right.
that's like a whole other,
Oh boy. Yeah.
that's a whole other can of worms, right? And, at the end of the day, whether or not you want to keep a baby as a teenager it's a
It.
very
Yeah.
touchy subject. Um,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm just hoping that with this option, that people recognize that it's an option, not a necessity, right?
Right.
Because people think it's the, go-to end all, option,
Yeah.
but that's
But
just simply not the case,
yeah.
right?
Sometimes it is, but yeah. But I'm glad you actually brought that up. By the way, of like condoms and whatnot, because most people think those types of how should I put this, instruments, right,
Yes, those
are
instruments.
are only used for like averting pregnancy, that kind of stuff. So it comes down to information, I believe, because like sex education, for example. Because most people just look at condoms and assume, oh, pregnancy. No, they're also they're also necessary in order to avoid spreading STIs.
Right, exactly.
So, well, I mean, what I'm trying to say is morality in and of itself is just, it's not something we can pinpoint, it's not
Yeah,
something we can achieve, so to speak. But common sense is, and that's what we should be striving for.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah,
I agree 100%. I think uh, to, I guess to uh, just addressing all the questions again, in terms of like this one question, because there's multiple questions with
yeah,
this one question. Is there one morality of right and wrong that everyone should abide by? I think it's a very circumstantial case by
yep,
case thing, in my personal opinion. Um, I do feel like there's that sub question of, do I have a personal responsibility, that's the word. Do I have a personal responsibility to convince other people? um I think it's a very yeah, this could be a whole episode on its own in terms of like
yeah,
personal responsibility of convincing others. I think all of us have seen that one person who's just very like,
yeah,
just again, it's circumstantial. It's a matter of finding balance between the two, because on one hand, you have the super like right-leaning conservative, like I love Jesus and God, and anyone who doesn't love Jesus
Handguns.
is God, and guns, and gay people suck,
Oh
and
boy, here we go. Second Amendment. That's another can of worms.
yeah,
Here we go.
exactly.
Yep.
And they just think, oh yeah, all that stuff. And then
Hmm.
you have the other side who are, on the extreme side of things again. If you're like super left leaning, there's also that side of like, I go by, Z's or pronouns, and it's and nothing against,
Yeah.
multiple genders. I'm just saying, once you're aggressive with it, because there are people who are like so aggressive with it. And just as a really brief tangent, and as another can of worms type of topic of gender, right?
The LGBT community written
Right.
down.
Um, thanks, secretary.
Hey.
Um,
Ow.
sorry.
Uh,
It's okay. I
Whoa,
don't have a.
do I have an actual job now? I should call my mom and
Yeah.
yay. By the
I
way,
don't
we
have.
hit the by the way, we hit the hour mark like 6 minutes ago. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But
okay.
yeah,
I'm almost
please
there.
continue.
Um, yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, that's right. So yeah, on the other side of things, there's the super, like left leaning, and like they get offended over like any joke you make, like at all. And so,
Mhm.
basically you can only make kids jokes with them. These are people I've actually met before.
Yep.
And they're, super like politically correct, and they don't say anything because they're trying to be accepting of everyone. And it for me personally, I think it's a matter of finding that balance right in
Hmm.
between the middle. Because on the one hand, you don't want to be that one guy who's trying to be a messiah or a prophet and trying to
Hmm.
change everyone's viewpoints, because that's very impossible, right?
Unless you actually are, which is a
Yeah, if you are
yeah,
the messiah, yeah,
yeah.
exactly, by all means, please save us, because we're in some deep shit right now.
Oh boy, murder
um
hornets have cometh to America.
exactly. But in terms of like a personal responsibility, I think it's up to you. I know that doesn't really answer the question,
Hmm.
um, but I really do think it's up to you. How much you want to convince other people. Like for
Hmm.
me personally, here's how I see it. You know, when I'm talking with someone, right, it's a matter of, do I value being friends with this person and maintaining the relationship, or do I value this belief more so?
Well, see,
Because
that's the thing. If you cannot engage with like in a proper conversation with your friends, and if both parties cannot keep an open mind with the other, then it's just me. But like, I don't think the friendship was built to last.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. No, no, no. That is so true. Yeah. You do need to, like you said, you need to keep an open mind to, have a friendship. If you don't
yeah.
have that, that's not a friendship, right? And I do think, again, in terms of personal responsibility, it comes down to, having an open mind, right? And it
Hmm.
goes both ways. It's a two-way street, right? And then a little bit of that goes into like education,
Hmm.
right? There is a certain, I think, responsibility to keep people educated.
Hmm.
Um,
Education.
we did talk about education a
We
little
did
bit.
talk about it.
Um, yeah, I think philosophy of education can be a whole other thing.
There you go. Yeah.
Um, but for me personally, I do think it is a responsibility of people to educate other people so that everyone's on the same level of education. Now, here's the thing.
Mm.
The point of education is knowledge, right?
Mm.
Now it's a very, again, iffy subject of like how political education can get, because at the end of the day, education is inherently political. So you
Hmm.
got to be really careful about what you say, because any fact, literally any fact, can be portrayed in a way where it is biased.
Right.
So you do have to be careful about, what you mean by education. What I
Hmm.
mean by education is getting everyone to the same level of information understood, but not necessarily coming to the same conclusions. Because I think
Right.
that's where argumentation and rhetoric comes in terms of like convincing other people. Do we have a responsibility to do that? I think, as an academic, absolutely, you have a responsibility to convince other people, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're just, some Joe Schmo like you, Aaron, and I, you, the person who's asking this,
Yeah.
For me personally, I think I can only convince people after a certain amount of time I've spent with them. Like,
Yes.
obviously, I wouldn't go up to some, person I just met and be like, now you gotta not eat meat because that doesn't agree with my views, kind of thing. I think it comes from a certain level of, friendship. And, like a great example is I have a friend who smokes, right?
Yeah.
Who like smokes basically every day, which I know is bad. And we keep telling her it's bad. And people around me keep telling her it's bad. I personally don't, just because I don't want to come off as, just because I've seen how she interacts with people who,
Mm-hmm.
telling her, hey, don't smoke, right? It's, again, a very, complex issue. And I personally don't, just because I'm quite frankly scared of, ruining or tainting our relationship,
Right.
just because I don't want to have that sour taste, in her mouth. And but that's just me personally. I know some people are very good at convincing other people. I, for one, am not. I don't think I have very good articulation of arguments quite yet, so I'm still working on that. But
Right.
In terms of personal responsibility, again, I think it's really up to you. I think the morality is a very complex issue that is very case by case. Like we have said with all these, like drugs and abortions and like eating meat, you can look at it from literally any angle, and that's why it's
Yeah.
just so hard to define a morality. And so, yeah, that's what I have.
It
Do you have
comes down
any?
to the definition of common sense, and like, yeah, the practice of it. But yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I have. Yeah,
So, uh, yeah, this has been the second Can of Worms episode for the Save It For The podcast.
that's
I
right.
am Aaron,
And I'm Neiman.
and we have gone through a full episode without having to do any kind of voice. I think. I'm not too sure. Wait, no, that's a lie. I did the Uganda knuckle voice. Damn it. Damn
Tried
it.
so hard. You
Tried
thought,
so hard.
my
And
goodness,
I came so far. But in the end, nothing really
didn't
matters.
really
Anyway,
matter.
with that reference out of the way, yeah, thank you very much for listening. And we
Yes,
shall
thank you
see
very
you
much.
all next time.
Yes. And don't forget,
Don't forget.
to send us questions.
Yeah.
Our email is saveitforthepodcast with two T's at the end at gmail.com. You can email us there. You can also
Yeah.
find us on Instagram.
That's right. We have an
We
Instagram
have an
channel,
Instagram
yo.
now. It is Save It for the Podcast official. You can see us there for any posts, updates, and you could also find our Google form and contact info
Yes.
there.
Yes, indeed. Gosh, I thought for a second you were gonna do the, generic YouTuber, don't forget to like,
Don't
comment, and
forget to like,
subscribe.
comment, and subscribe to our
Yeah.
channel.
This episode has been sponsored by. All right, now.
Yeah, and it is
No.
my personal citizen responsibility to convince you
Oh
to
gosh.
subscribe,
Oh
because that's what
no.
morality. No,
It's moral to subscribe, you guys.
it is. It's a, yeah. If there
Subscribe to
is,
save your soul.
among all the things of morality, the one defined morality is to subscribe to us.
Indeed. Give us your bank account number.
And your social security
Oh
number.
geez. Okay.
Comment
But
below.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much for listening, and we shall see you all next time.
Not with our eyes, of course, but metaphorically.
Metaphorically.